what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 2001 Lincoln Continental. Up front is a 4.6 liter V8 and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this Lincoln Continental because I didn't really even know that these existed up until semi-recently. This looks a lot like the Lincoln Town Car of the same era. Shown here, this is 2007, so a little bit of a facelift, but you get the idea. And so I can't imagine how many Lincoln Continentals from this era I've seen and just written it off as a town car. This is not. This is something on a completely different chassis with completely different options and something you don't see much of anymore. So I am so excited to share it with you. And that is thank you to Mike, the Retro Realtor. You can find his YouTube channel down in the description below. Huge thank you to Mike. We'll talk more about him towards the end of the video. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 4.6 liter V8 under the hood. Well, it's a form of the modular V8 from Ford. This is known as the Intech V8, and it is a quad valve, dual overhead cam V8. Makes about 275 horsepower in its current configuration. It's the same engine that came in the Lincoln Mark 8. However, this was actually detuned for 5 less horsepower, and it's a wonderful engine. They're very, very reliable. Some of them in the earlier years in the 90s had head gasket issues, but that seems to be sorted out by this time. They make good power, they're smooth, they're reliable, and I can't ask anything more. Like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed automatic. This was the only transmission offered here in the Continental. However, previous Continentals were 3-speed autos, so it's definitely nice to have the cushy 4-speed. Last but not least about the drivetrain, this is the interesting part. The Lincoln Continental from 2001 is front-wheel drive. So the Lincoln Town Car was rear-wheel drive. This is front-wheel drive. Very, very interesting that Lincoln was making both of them at the same time, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So how does it feel to drive a Lincoln Continental from 2001? It's very, very cushy, very boaty, and very comfortable. This car was built and designed to compete with Cadillac's SLS and STS at the time. You get tons of interior space, not a whole lot of road feel, which is what you want from a vehicle like this. It just sort of floats and coasts and goes over bumps without much drama, and that's what I love about the Continental. Visibility is wonderful. We are still just coming out of the 90s, so we still had good visibility before cars were required to be able to hold an A1 Abrams tank on their roof with crash safety. So definitely very nice. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me I have 4 gauges. Off to the left is my coolant temperature and fuel. Then I have my tachometer and speedometer in the center. I also get an information gauge off to the far right. On the steering wheel, we do have these really low slung grips, same thing you would find in a Lincoln Town Car. Off to the left is our cruise control options, and off to the right, we have our volume, fan speed, and temperature right on the steering wheel. Love the fact that they gave this to us. Off to the left, we have a climate control vent, our headlight switches and gauge dimmer switches. And moving out of the door, we have power mirrors, power seat adjustments, our lock and unlock, which for some reason the Ford Motor Company was using U and L in this era as lock and unlock. Kind of interesting. I feel like pictures were better, but oh well. And down below we have our window locks and window switches. Moving into the center, we do have a climate control vent, but then we have some interesting buttons. We have system check, driver ID, menu, select, vehicle handling, which will tell you what setting the vehicle's suspension is in, trip display, reset, distance till empty /econ, and a little Lincoln clock. Love to see all of that. Very, very cool features and something we don't see much of in cars anymore. Down below, we do have our radio. So we do have a AM and FM radio, cassette player from Alpine, and a 6-disc CD changer that we will talk about later on. But very cool to see this stuff. This is the all original radio, which is hard to find in cars of this vintage. Then we do have our climate controls. No dual zone here, but 2001, it's a little early for that. Fan speed, temperature, where to send it. Very, very basic, besides the fact that it does get a digital readout, which is very pleasing to the eyes. Then we do have our heated seat options, which you could do back or both. Very, very cool. And you get 3 different levels of heated seats. lovely here in the Lincoln Continental, and 23 years later, it is still working. It's not the hottest thing I've ever felt, but my seat is definitely warm. Then we do have an ashtray and cigarette lighter, and the shifter itself, very, very period Ford plastic chrome. They did this in a lot of their vehicles, so it's funny to see it here, but pretty standard shifter that you would also find in like a Mercury Marauder or Crown Victoria Sport. Then we do have pop-out cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the Lincoln Continental, and it comes very close. Closer than I would have ever thought. However, at the end of the day, it still is, unfortunately, a fail. Then we do have the center console, which is where you will find the 6-disc CD changer. It comes out as this like big, almost 8-track looking thing. It's very interesting and very period correct, so I just wanted to show that off for prosperity's sake. Now, the seats are wickedly comfortable, very, very plush, and it's what I would expect out of a vehicle like this. The late 90s luxury market was a fiercely competitive market, and so to keep up, these seats definitely had to come to play, and they most certainly did do that. They have the Lincoln logo stitched into them as well. I love that nice touch, and overall, I'm very happy to be sitting in them. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 2001 Lincoln Continental, and I'll tell you right off the bat, now the seat is decently moved back, but not enough to completely ruin it. There's not as much backseat room as you would find in a town car, at least in my opinion. Sitting in them, I haven't sat in a town car in a little while, but I can remember pretty good. I've sat in a Marauder recently, and these seats are incredibly plush, very, very comfortable, love that, but the actual space is a little bit lacking. I don't get anything up here except for some lights. I do have some nice lights up and over my shoulder, love to see that. And I do have a little pull-out armrest in the center with 2 cup holders that I think actually would pass the big friggin' bottle test. Yeah, this back seat cup holder actually does pass, but we don't test backseat cup holders, so I can't give the Continental from 01 a pass overall. But I mean, you see it here first, ladies and gentlemen, so very, very cool. Let's hop out, we'll take a quick look at the trunk, and then we'll talk about the looks. Here is the trunk of the Lincoln Continental from 2001. Nothing too crazy. Vehicles of this era, especially American cars, had huge trunks, and so that is very evident here in the Continental. Here is a giant American trunk. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and this is the facelifted version of the Continental. So from the early 90s, it looked a little bit different. Here's a Wikipedia picture I could use. And that did actually have its own unique look. I would recognize that on the street and say, hey, that's something different. But when they facelifted it in 1998, they really made it look very similar to the Lincoln Town Car. And so let's get on to my final thoughts, because that does play in. What do I think driving a Lincoln Continental from 2001? Well, it's been a wonderfully comfortable and luxurious experience. I've floated over every bump, dent, and divot that these Wisconsin roads offer me. And if you're from Wisconsin, you know that they're plentiful. It's been nice and quiet. I feel like in a lot of my videos, I do have to yell. I drive a lot of vehicles where I have to scream. I don't have to do that at all in this vehicle. It's nice, quiet, calm, and collected, and it makes sense why the owner, Mike, uses this as his daily driver in the wintertime. It's great. It's wonderful. But why don't we hear about these? Why did they kind of halfway flop? Well, let's just talk about the Continental. Well, like I said at the top of the video, it bewilders me that Lincoln was offering 3 different V8 sedans in the early 2000s. This just goes to show you how much money the big 3 automakers had pre-recession. Nowadays, no company would develop 3 vehicles on 3 separate platforms that serve nearly the same purpose. The Lincoln LS was sportier and a little bit smaller, but it was a V8 rear-wheel drive sedan. The Lincoln Town Car was a V8 rear-wheel drive sedan. The Lincoln Continental is a V8 front-wheel drive sedan. And so what ended up happening was Lincoln's biggest competitor for the Town Car and Continental was itself. The Town Car was pulling sales away from the Continental, and the Continental was trying to pull sales away from the Town Car. And the Lincoln LS was a good substitute for most people that wanted either one or both. And then you look at the pricing, these were priced nearly identically to the Lincoln Town Car of the era, so there's just wasn't any winning. Where the Continental would sell one car, the Town Car would sell 3 or 4. So this car ended up going away after the 2002 model year, without much fanfare, without any going away party or poppers or any sort of celebration. It just kind of ended because, well, Lincoln already had other vehicles that filled this gap. This car rides on a stretched Ford Taurus / Windstar platform / Mercury Sable, and the Town Car sat on the Panther platform that was shared with the Crown Victoria and Mercury Marauder. And then the LS was shared with the weird Ford Thunderbird of the time. So if you ever had a question, how powerful were the big three 2 decades after the oil crisis when they had time to recover? This is just a showing of that. They made 2 identical cars with completely different backgrounds and sold them for the same amount of money. Make it make sense. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Mike for letting me take out his Lincoln Continental. Like I said, Mike is the retro realtor here in the Wisconsin area. Please check out his YouTube channel. Let him know I sent you. He's absolutely wonderful. He's also into retro cars. I'm also filming his Pontiac Fiero today. And then we have a couple more videos planned down the pipeline that you'll see at some point. Mike has been absolutely wonderful. Please go check him out. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.